Welcome to Hot Talk. This is Hot Talk from Cal Poly, the California State Polytechnic University here in Pomona. I'm Saul Landau, your host on the show where we take up the hot topics. And we are also broadcast on Link TV and streamed from video.csupomona.edu. Today, with great pleasure, I want to introduce my guest in studio. I think one of America's most important writers in terms of historian, essayist, playwright, film actor, scriptwriter, detective story writer, political activist, and my friend Gore Vidal. Welcome to Hot Talk.
Happy to be here, Saul, and I trust I shall be at least tepid for you today.
Well, thank you. You taught me history in a way that I never learned it from the history books. That is, the people who you wrote about came alive, whether it was Burr or Lincoln or the characters around those eras. And so I began recommending early on that my students all read your novels alongside of the much drier history books, because they got a sense of really what motivated people. And I was thinking of that when I saw the film about Hitler the other day and watching this actor go, and I was thinking Gore Vidal could have written this script. The film Downfall.
Different point of view. I haven't seen it yet, but I hear the actor is wonderful.
It is quite sensational. I want to show you a book. You told me you hadn't seen this book yet. It's called Conversations with Gore Vidal, and it's just out this year. Richard Peabody and Linda Ebersole are the editors of the literary journal called Gargoyle, based in Washington, D.C. I know.
Well, you know, it's either here I am in the springtime of my senility, so it could be Alzheimer's, or it could be really that the brain at a certain point gets overloaded. I have no memory of these two authors whose name are on this book, Conversations. With me, I don't remember any conversations with them. And you tell me it's quite good, so I'll just go around and claim it.
Well, I think you should. There are interviews by Hollis Alpert and Jay Perini and John Wiener.
Oh, I think they've done sort of an anthology.
It's kind of an anthology.
No, there's something on the internet where they collect funny things I'm supposed to have said. Well, usually they aren't very funny, and usually I didn't say them. But there was a nice one that came in from London I picked up on the internet not long ago. Somebody said to me, "Have a nice day now." And I'm supposed to have said, "Sorry, I have other plans." I claim that one.
It is a good one. In one of these interviews, they ask you about national security. And your answer is that technically Lincoln really invoked it for the first time, but it really made its way into, how should we say, political doctrine in this country after World War II.
Well, certainly Lincoln gave it a great shove, but he and the country had been given a great shove by the South and secession. He suspended habeas corpus, he shut down newspapers, he governed as dictator. And he couldn't find, the South had every right to go. There was no holding argument, nor could he come up with one legally. So he just decided that the Union was sacred and could not be split up, which probably is the right idea, but it was not the Founding Fathers. So the South was probably constitutionally correct. Lincoln was off on his own. And then he had to come up with some explanation why this is the bloodiest war in modern history. And it got worse and worse. And he said, the choice of war is not with me, my fellow countrymen, but it is with you at the South. And if it is war you want, it is war you will have, because I can do no other. Now get this, he bases it on his oath, which is in the Constitution. Because I have sworn an oath, registered in heaven, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that is how we got into the national security state. Now every president thinks he has sworn that oath, and that means beef up the CIA and invade Iraq and so on.
And then you afterwards go on and you say that in the Iran-Contra hearings in the 1980s, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North took it to a much more honest level.
What did Ollie say?
You said he basically told the senators and members of Congress that you may have been elected, but we're the real government, and I don't want to hear any of your nonsense.
Well, it certainly played very well at the time. Ronald Reagan missed impeachment, which was coming his way, because Iran-Contra was against the laws of the land, the will of Congress, the courts, and here he was dealing with the enemy, which he ought not to have done with Iran, giving money to the Contras, which he ought not to have done. No, that was a wedge in the wall of our Constitution. But now our Constitution rather resembles Swiss cheese. I mean, there's nothing but holes in it. The great power in the Constitution from 1787 on has been they feared kings and tyrants. And so they decided it was the King of England that Jefferson attacks in the Declaration of Independence. It's the King of England who fights to save his empire, and we're part of the empire. Parliament has nothing to do with it. The king does it. Our founding fathers said we must put ourselves in a situation where no one man, whether he's called the president, the king, the pope, whatever, no one man can declare war. Only the Congress can declare war. That is absolutely engraved in marble in the Constitution. Franklin Roosevelt, who was a fine dictator, understood constitutional law, and right after Pearl Harbor, he went to the Congress, and yesterday, a day that will live in infamy. And he got Congress to declare war. That was December 41. We have fought 50 wars since then, and Congress has never declared one of them. Every war that we have fought, from Korea to Indochina to Iraq, are unconstitutional. They are illegal. They are against the spirit of the Constitution. They're against the whole point of the country. But the presidents have ridden on ahead. This way lies glory and money for their friends at Halliburton. And it has come to this.
Well, isn't it ironic that at the end of World War II, the United States insisted on writing the Nuremberg laws? As I recall reading in the history, the Soviets said, why don't we just line these guys up against the wall? We know who they are. We know they're all war criminals. Shoot them.
And Churchill said, when he heard about it, that there are going to be trials for the Nazi criminals, he said, well, there's one lesson to be learned. Don't lose a war. He saw himself in the dock, too.
Well, so the Americans insisted on having laws outlawing preemptive wars, aggressive wars.
Yes, and now we have a president who's made that the cornerstone of his attack on the rest of the globe. We are now at war with all the people on Earth, whether we're fighting them over the environment, whether we're fighting them over resources, fossil fuel resources, whatever it is, we're at war. And it's no accident we get people like Bolton are sent to the UN. He's a ludicrous joke.
John Bolton. Yeah.
John Bolton. I mean, totally unsuited for it. It's some kind of madman. But the president and the vice president strike me as slightly off the wall, too. One thing I wish we had put in the original Constitution, a recall clause, that when a government goes plainly bonkers, as I think this one has, that we can just either get in some men in white suits or send them home or hold a new election. There must be some recourse. The Founding Fathers, it took a long time to get a war going. You had to get the horses, you had to get the muskets made. I mean, it's a very slow process. Now at Langley, you press a button and there goes Beijing. There goes a whole city. So it can be done so quickly now. Why bother with Congress? So they don't. Well,
you laid out some of this beautifully in two books, and I want to plug both of them. One is Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace, How We Got to Be So Hated. And this is a fabulous read, and again, I insist my students read this. This is Thundermouth Press and Nation Books. And then, I think a very, very apt sequel, Dreaming War, the Bush-Cheney Junta. Both of these books, Nation Books and Thundermouth Press, extremely valuable for understanding the modern world. And for anyone who wants to trace it back, you did this wonderful book called Inventing a Nation, which dealt with the Founding Fathers.
And what their worries were, yes. They feared the powers of the president, and most of them knew it was a mistake to make him commander-in-chief. But the first president was going to be George Washington. Well, there was no better commander-in-chief. But I think it was Madison who observed in one of the Federalist Papers that he's making the argument against not having a standing army, because if you have one, we'll use it. It's just going to be used. Otherwise, it's eating up money, food, bullets. So we will attack Mexico and get California. We'll attack Spain and get the Philippines. We'll do this, we'll do that. And we did all that. We've been extremely busy for a couple of centuries. Now, however, the tide is turning against us. It's visible even in our corrupt media, which is not to be trusted on much of anything. But they do report on things like the stock market and the value of the dollar, and those are the giveaways, that we are losing control of an economy without which we cannot have a global empire, much less enforce our will on everybody, which seems to be the dream of this group in the White House. Well,
you also, I think, indicated in one of the answers to one of the questions in the conversations you've had with various writers. This is a new book out called Conversations with Gore Vidal. And I must say, lots of your wisdom appears in this book. So again, I highly recommend it. University Press of Mississippi. In it, one of the interviewers asks you about your correspondence with one of the people who should have been, by all logic, a supporter of Bush and Cheney, a man named Timothy McVeigh.
Oh, no. McVeigh, I was doing an analysis of the whole business, Waco and Ruby Ridge, that had led up to Timothy McVeigh blowing up and saying that he had blown up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. The more I studied the case, I never met him, but we corresponded, and I did a lot of research on it. The more I'm convinced it was a very large conspiracy, and he's a very small part of it. But he had been condemned to death, and he knew that if he sang, he could get life imprisonment. But between life imprisonment and what he called federally assisted suicide, he preferred suicide. But he was a kind of straight arrow when it came to the Constitution. He's quite learned and self-taught, real autodidact. And he said why our current government is unforgivable, and he didn't, this is pre-Bush, I think, but so he meant Clinton and before that. He said, it's been very clear in our history from the beginning. He said, I'm a professional soldier. He'd got the Silver Star, the Bronze Star. He was a hero in the first Gulf War. He said, I'm a soldier, and we're taught only to kill. We're not policemen. We're not there to help old ladies across the road. We're there to kill other people.